Invokal because it's my MC name. So
Right.
basically, I've been a musician all my life. I've been a writer of lyrics all my life, and when I moved to Brighton about 10 years ago, I switched from the punk and metal music that I was making and started doing more hip-hop music. And the reason hip-hop drew me in is because you can say so much more within a line, within a verse, with this, so many more syllables compressed, and it's kind of a mathematical thing, writing. Like when you first start rhyming, you rhyme, rhyme, and then you realise you can go rhyme, rhyme, and then eventually you realise actually that's infinitesimal, and you can do that as many times as you wish within a line. And I've always felt like I've had to get my rants off my chest, and lyrics I think for me were as cathartic as they are, obviously the creative element, but also very cathartic for me. I think they've been there for me through my life. Anyway, so I moved to Brighton. I started getting more and more into hip hop because of that element of it, because you could say so much more. And I wanted to have a moniker because most MCs have a moniker. And Invokal is literally to invoke with one's vocals, so to invoke emotion with my vocals and how I use them and the words that I use.
Fantastic, thank you. Obvious first question for both of you. How did you get into Doctor Who in the first place, Ryan?
I started out very young. I remember my first ever exposure to Doctor Who was the Dalek invasion of Earth, when I was very wee and tiny. And then, as things went on, my second real exposure, which was when I was hooked, and I was like, this is something I want to watch for the rest of my life. I was Genesis of the Daleks, and I remember watching it with my grandmother in Essex when I was about 6 or 7, maybe.
Wow.
Very young. And it just blew me away. Absolutely blew me away, because I was always on the lookout for something that had a bit more texture and depth. Like, I was into all the standard stuff that kids my age were into at the time. Like your Power Rangers, your Dragon Ball Z, everything like that. Still have a really big soft spot for a lot of it. But Doctor Who, space Nazis, ethical debates about life and death. Just, yes. That just got me.
Was it a behind the sofa thing for you, watching the Daleks in
no,
that story?
No, it wasn't. I was sat on the edge of my seat. It was
right.
It was this is really fascinating, and this is like brain food to me. It was more that than this is terrifying. The first Doctor Who story I saw that really like, freaked me out and scared me was, let me think, it was probably Curse of Fenric.
Okay.
Would be the one that really kind of shook me deep down. I've always found psychological horror more fascinating than things jumping out at you.
Yeah, sure.
And I think Doctor Who, although it doesn't delve into it nearly as much as it could, when it does delve into it, it's almost always great.
Yeah, it's true. John, what about yourself? What was your hook into Doctor Who?
I was a McCoy kid growing up. I was an 80s child, so I remember watching him and Ace darting about the place, and I was scared by the Daleks. I can remember watching the programme itself and loving it. Like, there's so many things. Growing up in the 80s, we were spoilt for so many things to watch, so many great cartoons and shows. But I remember liking the weird ones more, the sci-fi ones, and anything that explored unusual, anything that takes you out of reality. I guess it's that escapism element to sci-fi. I mean, the reason I think sci-fi is so important is that we live in a crazy world, and no matter what generation you grow up in, life's hard, and escapism is very, very important, and sci-fi gives you that. And also, I think that there's something about sci-fi that makes you step out of the reality you're in and gives you that ability to look back at it, and it gives you clarity of how crazy the world is because we're stepping out of it, kind of thing. And I've always loved that element of sci-fi. So I remember being a kid and hiding behind the sofa, and then I suppose I've always been into weird stuff, but growing up I wasn't immediately I didn't keep with Who. When it came back, I wasn't watching Eccleston.
Oh, right, okay.
It wasn't until Kylie Minogue, I think, was the... growing up, I was a big Kylie fan. I thought she was, I watched Neighbours, and I thought she was so hot. I should be so lucky. See what I did there?
See what you did there.
Can we write that in? So that was. I remember being bored at Christmas with my family are wonderful, but a whole week of Christmas with them can get a bit tedious. So looking for something on telly and thinking, oh, there you go, Doctor Who Christmas Day. I'll watch that to get a bit of escapism. And because Kylie was on it, and then I went back and watched the previous 10 that led to that point, and then after that went back and over Eccleston and stuff.
Fantastic.
And I've watched it since then.
Okay.
So.
Do you have a favourite story?
I would say from the early Who, because I haven't explored it as much. I've got a long list of early Who that I'm going through. I did start watching it from the very start.
Okay.
And watched the whole of the first few seasons, and then even through the missing episodes,
right?
And everything, and then just sort of I got distracted by creating. My issue is that I don't read enough. I don't watch enough stuff because I'm too busy creating my own. If you know what I mean. Anyway, and one of the early stuff that Ryan, funnily enough, told me to go and watch recently was Genesis of the Daleks, and I absolutely love that. I thought it was brilliant. I watched Land of the Giants the other day. Really, really like that. Yeah, thought that was great. And then New Who. Whenever people ask, I think if someone said to me, "Why?" Like one of my mates was very, very much against Who, and now he absolutely loves it. Right. And one of the things when he was like, "Oh, it's rubbish, it's for kids," kind of thing. One of the shows I said go and watch was Forest of the Dead and Silence of the Library. Yeah. I thought that those two episodes together were brilliant. I think the storylines were brilliant. Donna's one of my favourite companions. So I think that those are the ones that stand out.
Okay. Ryan, what about yourself?
Favourite stories?
Yeah.
Classic series, it'd be Remembrance of the Daleks or Inferno.
Right.
Big Finish, it would be anything by Rob Shearman. Just pick one.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying with that, definitely, yep.
And with the new series, it's... what is it again?
We were talking the other day about the episode where they
Dalek, that's the one, sorry John.
So what?
Dalek.
He's there.
I'm there, I came back. There.
Oh, the Rob Shearman connection.
The Rob Shearman connection.
Because I believe it was Rob Shearman that wrote Jubilee.
Non Rob Shearman stories. Yeah. It would be it'd be Protect and Survive for Big Finish.
Yep.
Which is great. Or for the new series, it'd be either Heaven Sent, which is amazing and beautiful. Okay. Not Hellbent, Heaven Sent. Just make no mistakes there. Or I'm going to be really boring and say Blink, because everyone loves Blink. And if you don't love Blink, you're a liar.
We were saying the other day about the episode where he goes to the Diamond Planet and leaves Donna behind.
Midnight. I love that one.
Yeah. Yeah, like I really like the psychological ones. I mean, I love the fact that you never see what it is that they're terrified of.
There's something very Lovecraftian about that story in the sense that it makes you feel really small and insignificant afterwards. Like there's a very sort of cosmic horror vibe to it. And I love stories where the Doctor has no idea what's going on. Because a lot of the time he walks around like talking like he swallowed a copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide. Yes. So to have him be in a situation where he's as scared as we are, like you said. And one bit that I've rewatched Midnight recently actually, and one bit that really struck me in it is the bit where he's like, you have to go through me to get to her. Yeah. And my first thought was, this guy is a master of multiple forms of martial arts. He is technically super strong compared to regular humans, which is something they very rarely touch on. Yeah. I would put him at like Captain America type strength level. If I was to make an estimation, I reckon he could probably split in half a Jeep with a motorbike if he wanted to. Yeah. And he could just take them all out. If he really wanted to, he could just lay them all out in an instant, but he doesn't because he is so dependent on using his intellect to solve his problems. He's so dependent on being the smartest guy in the room and that being enough. Yeah. And then the creature totally turns that against him. Yeah. Throughout the whole story. Love it. Yeah. Good choice.
Talking about how sci-fi makes you step out enough to reflect on the reality that we live in, kind of thing. And that's one of the episodes that gave me the most chills. Yeah. That point where you think, actually, he's in that confined space. Those humans could quite easily turn against him. And that element of of human psychology that they use against us in that episode, that really, I love stuff like that.
It makes you feel really bad about your own species, doesn't it? Yeah.
But that's such good for sci-fi.
And the other thing is as well, every single one of those characters is someone you've met We've all met
Yeah.
a bloke like the dad.
Yeah.
We've all met a really arrogant, really stuffy academic.
Yeah.
At least anyone who's been to uni. We've all met... I suppose not very many of us have met a depressed, suicidal lesbian, but, you know, I suppose a lot of us have.
So, John, a moment ago you mentioned Donna with a certain degree of passion in your voice when you were talking about her. Have you got a favourite companion?
Yes. Simply because, like, we talk about how everyone has their era of Who, don't we? Like, and because McCoy was my era, I've got to say Love Ace.
Right.
She was a bit of a hero of mine, and I loved her toughness. I thought that was great. And Donna, simply because like the chemistry between her and Tennant was absolutely superb. Like, I think they could have put those two in any role, any show, and they would have nailed it together. I think the chemistry was superb on screen. And also because of the lack of romance with Donna, I think that having that bullshit kind of, like, what's one of the first interactions with her, and he goes, "Oi, spaceman," and all that kind of...
You're not mating with me.
Yeah. You're not mating with me, sunshine was a great line. Yeah.
It was from that point I was like, yeah, sold on this. Yeah. I mean, I'm not knocking any of the other New Who companions. I think they've all done grand jobs, but yeah, Donna for me was the New Who. I wish we got more of her, basically.
Yeah.
And I wish there was a way we could see her with Capaldi, because I think they'd have a great chemistry together.
That would be an amazing thing to see. Yeah, definitely.
I think that in terms of companions, obviously it's Donna and Ace. I'm going to give the same answers.
Yeah.
I was really tempted to just go, "Oh, I love Clara." And see how you would have reacted.
Yeah, but we'd have known you were lying. So.
Yeah. I do that.
Now you're going to be losing views.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I would defend Clara. I like Clara. I don't think she's my favourite companion, but I like her. Once they actually gave her character traits and the idea that she's quite a sort of selfish, sort of flawed person, then when they did that, I was into it.
Right, yeah.
But before that, when she was like, "Oh, we couldn't afford Zooey Deschanel, but this is close enough," when they were doing that, I was not into it at all. Basically, all the bits where Matt Smith's like, "Oh, she's really rambunctious and she's wearing a skirt that's just a little bit too tight," and I'm like, "No! No!" Although I thought the idea of them having like a quasi-romance and then him turning really old, very clever.
Yeah.
I will give you credit for that.
I find it frustrating being a male and knowing how male brains work that I watch the show and can't not be distracted by Clara, if that makes any sense. Like, I'd almost rather someone a bit plainer, so I was focusing on the plot and everything else. Like, what's that bloody episode where she walks out in the Victorian clothing and stuff? And
yes.
I don't think I remember the rest of that episode until I rewatched it. No idea.
I must admit, I
This is turning a bit boys club now, isn't it?
But
I like her.
Interesting that one of Amy's first costumes was a
stripper
policewoman
outfit.
Yeah. And yeah, so to a certain degree I can relate to what you're saying. If they're not careful, it becomes too much of a distraction.
I think her sexually assaulting the Doctor was too much of a distraction,
well,
personally, but
that could also be argued. The next obvious question that most interviewers would ask in a Doctor Who related podcast would be, who's your favourite Doctor? Well, we're going to come back to that because I want to ask first off who your favourite showrunner is.
Bob Holmes. Because I think that he had one of the most challenging eras of Doctor Who to preside over, because he had John Pertwee's era was very, very acclaimed and very beloved. Yeah. And then he had a really difficult transition to get with Tom Baker. Tom Baker is, and he would admit this himself, rather difficult to work with.
Yes.
And that was the height of his difficult to work with period. And yet Bob Holmes managed to make the most iconic era of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Out of all of these elements that should not have worked.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have worked. Like, you know, the only reason that Harry Sullivan was in the show was because originally they were going to hire an older actor to play the Doctor. And so they wanted a young military man to, like, handle the bulk of the action. Then they hired Tom Baker, but the guy playing Harry Sullivan was still on contract, so they had to keep him on for a season. Like, little problems like that behind the scene, he had so much of that to deal with, and he handled it. And then John Nathan Turner came along and killed the show. But
oh, nothing controversial there.
I like John Nathan Turner. I'm just being honest.
John, what about yourself?
You've asked me that question again. I have no idea. No idea.
Are you okay?
I'm not going to start talking about Moffat.
I'll ask you an easier question.
Okay,
I was going to say Russell or Moffat.
Just about to say I'm not going to start with that one.
You can make it a one-word answer, and then we won't bring it up again.
Molyneux.
Until the next question.
Oh,
Molyneux. That Molyneux bloke, yeah, definitely.
Alright, let's move on to that obvious question.
He's only done one story, but it's promising.
Favourite Doctor, guys? John?
Me. Definitely me.
Definitely you.
Me, yeah, me.
Not that there's any hint of bias in what you're saying at all.
I would say I love McCoy as an actor, and I think he got eccentric and twee and the weirdness of Doctor Who perfectly. And he's my era Who, so I'm gonna go with that. And then after that, probably Baker.
Tom Baker.
It's obvious, but Tom Baker. Yes, sorry, I must clarify. It seems like an obvious answer, but you know that we all love a bit of Baker.
Yeah.
And then
Yes, indeed, we do.
And then Who, he is the definitive article, you might say.
You might.
And then Who, I loved Tennant. It was Tennant that I came in at. And when they announced Smith, I thought, no chance, he's not going to get that role. It was going to be a tough act to follow to begin with.
Yeah.
I was just like, who's this Edward Cullen looking guy?
But by the second season of Smith, I was like, yeah, he's getting this now. By the third, I was just like, oh my god, it's amazing. He's just as good as Tennant ever was.
Yeah.
And then when they announced Capaldi, I was just totally sold from day one. I thought absolutely spot on choice. Love Capaldi as an actor. Loved the thick of it. I think he's a superb actor, and he's had moments of absolute gold. There have been Oscar-worthy moments through there, and I think we haven't seen him at his best yet. But I definitely think Capaldi, out of all the Who, was probably the most instantly Doctor.
Right. Okay. Right.
I would say classic era. It would be a toss-up between Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker.
Okay, that's
And
interesting
although
because they're often the
they're
most
the most
maligned
controversial.
of the... Yeah.
I would say that Colin Baker's Doctor, I think his Doctor is brilliant. I just think that he was unlucky enough to be in a really bad era of the show.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to how I feel about Peter Capaldi in a way. I think that there's a lot of parallels between not only their Doctors, but their arcs as actors within the context of the show. There's a lot of... So I can't wait for Capaldi to get on Big Finish. Is basically what I'm saying.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah.
Because he'll do it too.
Yes, I think he would. Yeah.
And I think that Colin Baker, I'm also factoring in his Big Finish stories into why he's one of my favourite Doctors.
Yeah.
Sylvester McCoy, I love the Machiavellian manipulative side of the Doctor, and I think he embodies it very well. There's this brilliant line in Protect and Survive with Hex where he says sometimes he gets so close to the monsters it's hard to tell which is which.
Right.
And I think they try so hard to make the Doctor dark in the new show, and Sylvester McCoy just nailed it without even trying.
Yeah.
Basically. He and Paul McGann.
Paul McGann?
And Paul McGann.
Okay.
Once again, Big Finish.
I was just going to say, you
Big Finish is a
Big
bit, not the
Finish
movie.
as well, or- yeah.
He will live and I will die. No,
But again,
not
I feel for McGann in terms of his TV appearance because great Doctor, just not the best vehicle for him in terms of a TV story.
Fantastic Doctor.
Paul
McGann.
Can't help thinking that maybe McGann in the current era might have actually had.
I honestly think, and I know this is going to be a very controversial statement, but I think the only reason that he wasn't in the 50th anniversary special was that he would have wiped the floor with Tennant and Smith.
Quite possibly.
Would have just
Wow.
Not even with effort. Just like he would have just been there, and then everyone would have just gone mad for the 8th Doctor after that.
There's another controversy corner right there.
There would have been
really,
huge. If it was, imagine
Feel the shock across the
Imagine if it was Paul McGann instead of John Hurt.
Yeah.
And imagine the Tumblr fan reaction.
Yes.
To Paul McGann.
Yeah.
As the Doctor.
Yeah.
To the people who'd never seen him before as well. Because he's a very handsome man.
Yeah.
This is what people have said about the Eccleston that he recently said. He was like, "Oh, I wish he'd had more time as the Doctor," and everyone's like, "Well, first of all, it was your choice to leave. Secondly, you didn't even want to be part of the 50th anniversary episode. Mm-hmm. So why are you now complaining that you wanted more time as the Doctor?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, isn't it?
Because he might change his mind over time. I'll give him credit for that, but you're right. It is a very hypocritical thing to say when you consider that he almost killed the show.
I'm not an Eccleston fan in general. I don't rate him in anything he's really been in. There was that one BBC drama actually. I can't remember what it was about. He was a flower dealer or something, and he was a drug dealer as well, and he was selling the drugs in the flowers or something. I thought he was quite good in that. That was about it, really.
If anyone can tell us what that is,
like I'm crazy.
I'm good. I'm not that good.
Yeah, listeners, if anyone can tell us what that is,
Definitely
respectthething@hotmail.com. Do email us, show, and let us know what that Eccleston drama was called.
One more thing. Well,
yeah,
one of my favourite doctors, Matt Smith, is better than David Tennant.
The controversy tumbling in here.
Not only is he better than him, to me, when I think the Doctor, I think Smith's Doctor more than Tennant.
Isn't that just because he's most recent? If they'd have gone in another order.
No, it's not because of that. It's because Matt Smith's Doctor is consistent.
Consistently what?
Okay, so he's... Alright, so this is where 10th Doctor is overrated. Here's why. So...
You were going to get that in somewhere,
I was. I would explain this really quickly and then we can
We had
move
a
on.
talk about this,
Didn't we? Yeah.
We did, and I was like, I'm going to ignore him. Because it's good, it's entertainment, isn't it? That's the whole point
Absolutely.
of this. Okay, so 10th Doctor, here's the issues that I have with him. 1, he's too hyper-emotional. Right? 2, the Doctor should be aloof, not patronising. When Tennant's always like, hello, it just comes off like a guy talking to a child. To me.
Right, yeah.
3, inconsistent moral code. Right? He will lecture people about using guns. He's always like, I'm the man who never would. I'd never hurt anyone. Commits genocide with a smile.
Yeah.
Like, I'd never use a gun, but I'll drown a load of baby Rachnos. I'll never use a gun, but I'll forcibly convert a guy into a nude.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's like, that to me is wrong.
But is that down to the Doctor or is that down to the scriptwriter?
Scriptwriters. But the Doctor is...
Can you therefore say that the Doctor is not as good if
Yeah, I
he's still
can
working
because
with
they're his words. Like, they always wrote him that way. It's not like one script...
Wait. So are you saying Tennant's Doctor was not as good as Matt's Doctor, or Tennant was not as good as Smith?
The first one. Tennant is a fantastic actor. He is brilliant as the Doctor, and with the right writer, he is magical. The problem is, a lot of the stuff that's at the core of his character, in my view, is not the Doctor. And if they'd had the testicular fortitude to actually do the Valeyard storyline properly,
Yes.
rather than teasing it every season and never doing it,
Yeah.
he would have been really good in that role.
Yeah.
And I also think he's just great. He's a great actor. I've got no hate for Tennant whatsoever. I just think that his Doctor is badly written in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I would like to see... Like, Big Finish did a really good job with him at the moment.
Yes.
I will say that.
Yeah. I haven't heard those yet, but I am looking forward to it. Everyone I've spoken to has said how good they are.
They're
so
fun.
Yeah.
They are... you know the sort of silly episodes with Tennant and Tate?
Yeah.
They're like those with a bit of an edge.
Okay.
Basically, they're
I
really
shall
good.
look forward to them.
I think it helps that Matt Smith has a really weird face. But
Yes, it does. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
eyebrows.
Eyebrows.
But it's also Matt Smith. He had this lovely... I think it's also because Matt Smith wasn't a fan when he first became the Doctor. He became a fan as he was producing the show.
Yeah.
And I have this thing where I think that when fans are given control of a beloved property,
Yeah.
and they make a movie of it, there's this issue that often pops up. They are too in love
Yes.
with... I love Doctor Who, but I recognise its flaws.
Yeah.
And I will talk about its flaws. But like, a lot of people will create something and they'll recreate something that they love, and it will not be done right because there is too much love.
Yeah.
And it's love that does not question. It's too unconditional.
Yeah.
And with Tennant, there is a bit of that.
Agreed.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of ran
It
over.
does, yeah.
Whereas with Stephen Moffat, he was like, let's deconstruct the Doctor. And while I have issues with the execution, I think that was the perfect direction to take it after the Russell T Davies era.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. In your recently released minisode, you have your lead characters in the TARDIS wandering through the wardrobe room. And going through various well-known items of costumes that the Doctor has worn in previous incarnations. Do either of you, or both of you, have a favourite costume from the TV show?
I really like the Victorian influenced costumes. So like end of Smith era, I thought was his purple velvety suit coat thing was beautiful.
Yeah.
I wasn't really a fan of Tennant's dirty old man's jacket, rain jacket thing. I liked his suit. I liked his pinstripes.
Yeah.
Didn't like the rain jacket on top. And I like Capaldi's most recent stuff. I think that we were saying the other day how his clothes have gone in and out with his character.
Yes.
Well, you were saying the other day, and I was agreeing. How he's kind of like matured with his clothing in the same way he's matured as his character.
What we said was the jacket he wears represents his outer adult, and the t-shirts and hoodies he wears represents his inner child. That's how I see it. And because he is effectively the first Doctor as well as the 12th, like he's the first of this new cycle of regenerations. So it's very much kind of everything's new to him, and he's got this kind of wonderment which they don't actually write in, but they should.
And I'm also a big fan of the question marks.
You're a fan of the question marks?
I know everyone's like, oh, well, it's just like the Joker. But I actually really like the question marks. I think they're cool. If they can be overused. I mean, I'm not sure a waistcoat is really me. Not a waistcoat, a tank top, I meant to say. A tank top is really me. But I do really like the question marks. I think they're cool.
I think you should get like a tank top with question marks on the nipples. That'd look pretty good.
Family show.
You're allowed to imply stuff. Hey, if you can have River making jokes about S&M, then you can have that.
You were saying the other day, weren't you, how you loved Capaldi's early costumes because of the fact that it made the Doctor, pretending to be the Doctor affordable again.
Yes. I love this, even though I do destroy them in Tales of a Timelord, I do love the sonic screwdriver, even though my Doctor hates them.
Sonic screwdriver or the sonic glasses?
Sonic glasses, that's
I was going to say, I don't hate the screwdriver, just the glasses.
I don't hate the screwdriver, I hate what's been done with it though.
Yes.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So, with regards to the sonic sunglasses, I love how now kids can cosplay the Doctor.
Yes.
Even if they're not rich.
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely, yeah.
I love how you can just put on a hoodie and a pair of sunglasses as this little kid and be like, I'm the Doctor.
Yeah.
That to me, and that sort of decommercialisation of the show in general that happened in season 9, I was very in favour of.
Yeah.
Even though they ended up just being used as a sonic screwdriver.
Yeah. But I think it was good, as you say, it opened up the whole cosplay thing to a whole load of people who, up to that point
would have been locked out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And you're just thinking, hang on a second,
Surprisingly enough, one of the easiest ones, one of the cheapest ones to cosplay is actually 4. And you'd think it actually isn't. You'd think it'd be really expensive because there's so many elements to it.
Yeah.
But most of them are just things you can pick up in the shop.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that's really difficult is the red coat, and you can just wear a red blazer for that.
Yeah.
A lot of it is pretty simple. Whereas with Tennant, it's all bespoke.
Yes.
And with Matt Smith, it's all bespoke. And it's all very, very posh and expensive.
Yeah. Tough to...
Maybe we should just get a Doctor with like a black t-shirt and a shaved head.
I was going to say, our Doctor certainly has a look. I know it's an audio drama, people, but we have promo images, and our Doctor's definitely got a look, which is essentially the more eccentric side of my wardrobe.
Right.
So most of the things you see me in, I do wear around town.
Right,
Just,
okay.
Around space, I should say.
My cousin has started referring to the show as Hipster Who.
Really?
Our version?
Yeah, our version.
One of my friends said, I didn't realise you were going to play it so camp. And I was like, did I?
I was just going to say, it's not how I would have described it, but maybe we'll come back to that in a moment. Tell us how you guys actually met.
Through music, didn't we? You used to be in Brighton going to uni.
Yeah.
And you dabbled in the old hippity-hoppity.
Yes, I did.
And I dabble in the old hippity-hoppity. So that's how we met. I think we performed at a gig together, perhaps, and...
Yes.
Certainly through music, anyway. And then just stayed Facebook friends for a few years, and...
Just chatted, have little rants and stuff.
Yeah, we both love a good rant on Facebook.
Okay.
And then, just through the love of sci-fi, and then you came to me with this idea, you'd be getting more and more into writing, and you've written your novel, which people should check out.
People should check it out, actually.
Plug your novel,
Man needs to eat. It's called Lioness. It's available on Amazon. It is a deconstructive black comedy superhero story. And if you love superheroes, but you're sick of how formulaic they've become, check it out.
Cool. Right, now you've finished your advert.
Yeah.
You were talking
available on paperback or Kindle.
You were going from there into how Tales of a Timelord was conceived once you'd met.
So, how much had you written when you came to me? Just the first episode?
First episode.
And you had a few stories in your head?
I had a bunch of story concepts in my head, but I'd only written the first episode.
And because you knew about my love for the Doctor, and
Yes.
because 6 months previous I'd put out a load of pictures saying Invokal for the next Doctor. I think it was actually, maybe it was old.
It was a lot of elements. Those were two of the elements that definitely played into it. I know you wanted to, but it was more than that. That's all I'll say.
I think a lot of my music goes down the theatrical route, and I've always dabbled in these kind of areas and stuff. Yeah. And recently did a big science fiction B movie as a music video.
Okay.
So there was lots of things just sort of tilted us in this direction, really, wasn't
Yes, I would say so.
And then he sort of dropped a few hints and said, "I've got this script," and I was like, "Give it to me! Give it to me! Give it to me! Give it to me! It's mine!" And then Hattie, the companion, is a friend of mine, so yep. I sort of enlisted her, and my girlfriend puts up with all my crazy projects that I get involved with, so she was already helping out, and it just sort of came together. And then we needed some more voice actors, so yep. I advertised on a Facebook page, a Brighton Actors Facebook page, and found Justin, who plays our captain.
Yep.
And he's like a professional actor, should we say. He takes things very seriously.
Says beyond.
Yes, he's a very good actor. And he commented on the question on the post, and put his showreel on, and one of the first showreels I watched was his, and he does a line from Hitchhiker's Guide, a little piece from Hitchhiker. Yeah. So I knew straight away that he was definitely going to be someone I wanted. And everyone just came together and fitted the role perfectly, really. And we've got Alex, who's another one of our voice actors. He's coming in episode 2. You haven't heard him yet, but he's coming in. And
cool.
One of my neighbours did the little kid's voice.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
Yeah. So and it all just came together, didn't it? And you were talking about the technical side of things.
The actual production itself.
Yeah, we both put our previous knowledge from music really into action, didn't we? And certainly with Teardrop, I had an idea in my head of what a radio show or what a sci-fi show should sound like, and I just sort of built it piece by piece by piece by piece, and went back over it and added more bits and sort of built up the texture, shall we say, the soundscaping. And it all just kind of worked and came together perfectly, and we got to the end of it and had this product in front of us, and we're like, actually that's good, that is. That built our confidence a lot, actually having a product there to put out. So we went about all the social media side of things, and the rest, as they say, is history.
History has a connotation of looking back, but your own Doctor, I believe, is set a long way in the future in terms of the television show's timeline. Yeah,
that's certainly true. I mean, I will say that we were very keen on keeping we love the BBC show, we love what Big Finish do, but we wanted to certainly be our own thing. And one of the things that most drew me to the story when Ryan was first telling me about it was the fact that the Doctor was way down the line. We're not even going to specifically say, but somewhere between his 20th and 21st-ish regeneration.
If not more.
Yeah,
but we'll keep it vague. It could be anything.
We're deliberately keeping that vague, but a long way down the line, and we wanted to keep a distance, a polite distance between us and the other elements of Doctor Who that the BBC have going for them. Yeah. I'll let you carry on, because I know you've got a lot to say about this.
About the future era.
Yeah.
One of the main things for me was a sense of... I wanted to bring a sense of scale back to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
In the sense that... one of the issues with the new series that I do have, as much as I do love it, is that the Doctor is the biggest fish in the pond that he's swimming in.
Yeah.
And for me, the Doctor should be sort of about a 4 on that scale.
Right, okay.
If humans are a 1, he's a 4,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And then Time Lord Society is about 5.
Okay.
And then you got the Black Guardian at the top.
Yeah.
And then you got a Fenric who's like an 8.
Okay.
Basically, that's how I look at it in my head.
Yeah.
Whereas when the new series came, all of those old gods and all that old mythology was just pushed to the side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I had problems with. So with what we're doing, we want to kind of bring back that sense of awe and wonder and mystery. And one of the ways to do that, without stepping on the toes of the canon of the older series and New Who, was just setting it so far away in our Doctor's timeline. And another thing is, our Doctor is not a mopey Doctor. He's not an emo Doctor. He's not depressed over the Time War. He's not depressed over some great lost love.
Yeah.
He's just a guy exploring space and time, having fun.
Yeah. Sure.
And so the drama comes from the situations and from the interactions between the characters and from tensions between the characters as well.
Yeah.
Rather than this horrible thing happened in my past and I'm going to be sad about it for 10 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
And then I'll finally resolve it and bring it back, and then I'll be sad about something else.
I think that's another reason why we picked a companion who was from the future as well. And we didn't want someone from present day Earth. We wanted someone that was gonna, to a certain extent, compete with the Doctor technology wise, and she's gonna have a wider scope of the universe. She's lived, hasn't she? Should we say?
She's lived. Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of backstory for you to find out in future episodes, both in the minisodes and the main series, and
or if you're really, really well behaved, a spin-off.
Oh,
really well behaved.
We've got a lot planned.
Is that a podcast exclusive?
Yes. Yes, it's an idea that I just had, but yes, it is an exclusive.
You've talked about wanting to, on one level at least, distance what you're doing from the BBC show in order to bring about a freshness to it. But one of the staples of Doctor Who, much like the sonic screwdriver, like the TARDIS, is the techno-babble. Have you kept the techno-babble in the scripts? And if so, how have you come to be doing that?
We deconstructed it and then we reconstructed it, basically.
Right, okay.
Is the best way of it. I looked at the techno-babble and I looked at what I didn't like about it, which we'll talk about first. So we'll deconstruct and then we'll reconstruct.
Okay.
So an example I would give is the end of Journey's End, when Donna has become the Dr. Donna.
Yep.
And she is streaming off a load of techno-babble while she's, Deus Ex Machina and the Daleks away. And if you actually... What I did was I wrote it out. Like the techno-babble of that scene.
Yep.
And then I watched the scene. It does not connect.
Right.
She's just using a load of big words.
Oh, okay.
And most of them do not mean what Russell Davies thinks they mean as well. And what I wanted to do was take a big step from that.
Yeah.
I'm really into science. Like, I love chemistry, I love physics. I'm a what's the best way of putting it? I'm a good layman.
Yep.
I'm not going to stand here and be like, I'm a genius. Yada, yada, yada. But I knew enough to know that I wanted the science in our show to make sense. Yeah. In a sense. Yeah. The Doctor lives in a purely rational universe in ours. Uh-huh. So an example would be from the third episode of Teardrop, which you haven't heard yet. So the Doctor is... the Doctor and the group of people are trapped in an enclosed environment. There is a monster coming after them. He has access to a chemistry lab. Yeah. He mixes together, I believe it's magnesium and iron... No, it's aluminium and iron oxide. Yeah. I believe. If I'm wrong, then let me know. Actually, I don't care. But he mixes together these chemical compounds. It's scientifically accurate in the show. Yeah. I just can't remember off the top of my head. To create thermite. Yeah. Which he then uses as an explosive to defeat the monster. That, to me, is a better use of technobabble than, it's a blah, 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 blah. Right. Nice. Yeah. Oh, it's a stellar manipulation device. Yeah. And things like that, which just great on me, to be honest, when I hear them.
I went to a Doctor Who talk recently for Simon Guerrier.
Is it Guerrier?
Guerrier.
That's it. Yes.
But for the Scientific Secrets of Doctor Who, they did a little talk, him and the science buddy that he wrote the thing with, I can't forget his name. And one of the questions they asked near the end was, how important is the science behind Doctor Who? How important is it that they get it right? Yeah, and they wanted a show of hands, and 90%, maybe more, of the room put their hands up saying, yes, we think it's important that they get the science right, and you can't just make words up. And so I think that, and I agree with that personally. I think that it's got to be, it needs to be. So, Doctor Who's something that, this is another thing they talked about in the show, is something that reflects the era that it's made in. Yep. You look at like the space race and how much that influenced the show at the time. Yep, sure. And stuff like that, and I think that it's very important to get that right. And we live in an era where Google is in your hand. It doesn't take long for someone to go, is that right? Is that possible? Yeah. So I think that's important, and I like Ryan's attention to detail with that because honestly, when he sends me some of these scripts, I have to say, what does that mean? What does that mean? Sure. How do I pronounce that? But I like that. The fact that I have to do that means that he's getting it right. Yeah.
I hear what you say in terms of getting the science right, and I agree with that to a certain extent. But the flip side of that is something which Ryan and I were chatting about a little bit before we started recording, which was the ability to suspend one's disbelief when watching Doctor Who. And the example that we were talking about was at the end of Robot of Sherwood, where a lot of people panned the conclusion of the golden arrow being fired up at the ship and being able to do everything it needed to do in order to resolve that story. And a lot of fans kicked off about that. Oh, there's no way that the arrow would have reached the ship. There's no way it could do it. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a second. You're the same group of fans who follow a show which is basically about an old man who travels through space and time in a small blue box that's bigger on the inside than the outside. But you're quibbling over whether or not an arrow is going to reach a spaceship.
I would offer a counter argument to that.
Yep.
We don't know how the TARDIS works, but we know how gold works.
Yeah, good shout.
So, and we know that gold doesn't work the way that they presented it as working.
But if you're saying you don't know how the TARDIS works, have you not then, for want of a better expression, by faith, got to accept that it just works? How, Capaldi to me, and it was one of the things which I really struggled with for a long, long time, but I've come to terms with it now. Capaldi in one of the opening scenes of, I think it's, not the opening scene, one of the scenes in, I think it's The Witch is Familiar, when he's in Davros's chair, he goes right into the middle of the Dalek chamber, and he's in Davros's chair with a cup of tea in his hand, and he says something along the lines
I'm the
of...
Doctor, don't question it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the Doctor, just accept it.
Yeah.
How do you tie that up with...
His pockets are the bigger on the inside, so he would have had the cup of tea in there. It's not like he wouldn't have had access to some.
But that's not scientifically realistic, is it? Do you see do you see the point I'm making?
Well, no, because if you've got what's effectively it's theoretical science, but if you believe in multiverse theory, which is the idea that there's infinite universes, it is conceivable that you could create a tiny universe and place it. I believe that the term that Tom Baker's Doctor uses is dimensionally transcendental.
Yep.
See, I'm fine with something that doesn't exist. What I'm not fine with is taking something that does exist and doing it wrong.
And getting it wrong. Yes.
Like, I think that my thing is, if you've got a set of rules in your fictional universe, it doesn't matter what those rules are. They can be whatever they want.
Yeah.
But you've got to follow them.
Yes.
An example from comic books, for example, would be Wolverine.
Yes.
Okay, so he can heal from any injury. Mm-hmm. Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Like, he's not... Like, before it was like, he gets a gunshot, he can recover in a couple of hours. Now, gets a nuke to the face, fully regenerates within an hour, does not make sense, even within the context of that world.
Yeah, sure.
Doctor Who, similar thing. When it doesn't make sense in its own context, that's when I'm like, this is just wrong. Yeah. But I'm fine, I can accept all sorts of ridiculous science stuff, because the way I look at it is Clarke's third law.
Yeah.
Any alien that's sufficiently advanced will appear to be magical to humans.
Yeah. And
we're humans, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, sure. Your first episode has now been broadcast. Teardrop episode 1, that's gone out. And my co-host Sarah, and I won't give her age away, but she's considerably younger than I am, but she listened to that. You're laughing, I'll get such a slap if I tell our listeners how old she is. But Sarah's married with 2 children, one of 3, one of 7. Now, the 3-year-old obviously has the attention span of a 3-year-old, obvious thing to say, but that's how it is, and he got up and walked away within the first couple of minutes. The 7-year-old sat and listened avidly to the whole episode. So you've got a 7-year-old there, you've got Sarah, who is of her age, and I'm a few weeks away. By the time this goes out, I'll have just turned 47. What's your target audience? Because you've hit 3 different generations almost.
I would say that our target audience is, when I write, I'm aiming at adults, but I'm always making sure that kids will be able to keep up. And I think that it's going to be adults that are going to gravitate to it first, but I also think that kids... Like, I'm not excluding kids when I'm writing, basically.
Sure,
but at the same time, I'm not bending over backwards to include them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that kids can take a lot more than we give them credit for.
Yes, I think that's very true.
We mollycoddle our kids too much these days as well. As a general complaint about Western human society, we mollycoddle our kids too much. And I think that our entertainment treats them like idiots.
Yeah.
When then, if you treat a kid like an idiot, it's going to grow up to be an idiot.
Yes.
Whereas if you treat a kid like an intelligent, inquiring, malleable young mind, which is what they are, I mean, a brain is effectively a supercomputer, and that is a supercomputer at the prime of its ability to absorb data. Therefore, don't talk down to kids.
Yeah.
That's my attitude with regards to target audience, is anyone who would appreciate it, but I can see where like the intergenerational thing comes from. But I'm genuinely quite surprised that a 7-year-old was into it, but pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I think we deliberately gave it a PG rating because there are certain dark places we'd like to go with it. That the BBC's hands are certainly tied in the fact that they've got to keep a huge wide audience. So I totally agree with that. We're not excluding any age, but we're certainly going to be brave enough to go to some pretty dark places.
Yeah. So would you say that future episodes, for example, would be less suitable for Josh, who's the 7-year-old that we were referring to, than maybe Teardrop episode 1?
I don't think any of them. We're not aiming to make anything that's so.
I don't think
so
it's
terrifying that.
I think that unsuitable is a very loaded term.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think there's going to be some things that might send him behind the sofa, but I think he can probably take it.
Yeah.
Basically, is my answer to that.
Yeah.
Especially episode 4.
Okay.
I'm just saying that so he knows what I mean.
Yeah,
he knows exactly what. There is a scene in episode 4 that will upset some people.
Right. Okay.
Basically.
Yeah.
But we don't care.
Upset because it's not normal Doctor Who, or upset because of the level of fear involved in the scene?
No. Upset with the level of emotion.
Upset with the level of emotion and with some of the circumstances, which I think we didn't even think about until someone pointed it out to us.
Right.
But
one of the first rehearsals, there was a very sort of eerie moment when he first performed that bit, with the bit you're talking about that we're not allowed to mention.
No, not that bit. Oddly enough, the bit that causes that.
Anyway.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
All right,
I'm hoping that where you're going is going to be a hook to bring more listeners in for you.
It involves something that normally Doctor Who would never dare to do.
Okay.
I know.
Classic. He knows what I'm on about now. He knows exactly what I'm on about, and we did it, and it worked.
Okay.
And you will know what it is.
Yeah.
Like the moment you watch the episode and you get to the scene, you will be like, "Oh, this bit." And I think it will be like the thing that everyone remembers.
Yeah.
Basically, because there's two bits. There's two bits that everyone remembers. Is that, and there's a bit in episode 2.
Yeah.
Involving Maria, and Maria basically us learning a bit more about her.
Yeah. Sure.
And learning her backstory.
Uh-huh.
And there's a scene in there where it's my Moffat moment of like deconstructing the Doctor.
Okay.
And I basically went, rather than giving it 4 seasons, I'm going to do it all in one scene.
Cool.
Pretty much.
Cool. You've talked about future episodes. What's your timescale for pushing the episodes out?
Funnily enough, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? And we aim to get production to somewhere up to about an episode a month.
Okay.
But we're not going to put any limit on ourselves.
Yeah.
We want the quality of the product is what's going to be most important. And rather than wait 6 months putting a season, if you will, together, and then releasing it in a short burst, we much rather release things as we're making them and at the pace that we're happy to work at. And I think it feels more organic that way. And we're also talking about we want it to be more of an ongoing thing. It's in
serialized.
I hate the word. I hate the word soap, but in the sense that we're an ongoing.
Sure. With that in mind and looking to the future, how much, particularly in relation to monsters, aliens, villains, how much are you drawing from current and classic televised Doctor Who?
I can answer that. The first, it's not seasons as he was saying, but the first volume, so to speak, we are intentionally avoiding any and all use of classic monsters. There is a Dalek in the first episode of Teardrop,
right?
But I think you can even tell in the first episode of Teardrop there's a bit more to it. One of my favourite moments in the first episode of Teardrop, spoilers for the first episode of Teardrop, but one of my favourite moments is when the Doctor's, when the Dalek's like shooting people and stuff, and the Doctor goes up to it and is like, I'm just going to talk it to death.
Yeah.
And then it responds with a woman's voice.
Yes.
That's one of my favourite moments because
Yeah.
it's like everyone, you like the audience. I was like, they're going to think, oh, this is going to be typical Base Under Siege with monsters.
Yeah.
And then that happens, and then the
very
bodies
different.
start coming back to life and chanting, and like I think that when I planned out the series, we have a flowchart from start to end. Like we have all this planned out. First season, I intentionally avoided classic elements.
Right.
Second season, all right, this isn't a spoiler. We can say this, but there will be a Dalek story.
Yeah.
There will be a Cybermen story.
Yeah.
And we have taken the time to make sure they will both be great, basically. Yeah. But we will introduce classic elements as we go along because we're building to something that will require them. Yeah, but they will not appear until they are required, basically. Yeah. And we don't want to go like, oh, we want to do a Dalek story to pull in listeners. Like, there's none of that, basically. There's none of, oh, we're doing this to like get people on. The story always has to come first for us. Yeah. Otherwise, you end up taking the marketing executive route. Yeah. And it becomes rubbish, basically.
Yeah, sure. Where do you see this going in the future? What are your hopes for the future of Tales of a Timelord?
Universal domination. We're going to be the best show in this multiverse.
I want to create something.
Good answer. Great answer.
Well, I'm going to be a little bit more humble than him. I would like to. No, I love that answer. Mine's basically the same.
That was the doctor's answer, not John's answer.
What's John's answer?
World domination.
World domination. Universal. Okay.
Slightly more realistic target.
Start with the UK. See where it goes.
I want us to go down the route of Big Finish. Would be ideal in an absolutely ideal way. They started out doing fan fiction. Yeah. Effectively, that's what Bernice Summerfield was fan fiction. Yeah. And they got a license from the BBC. Everything kind of snowballed from there. In an ideal world, that's what I'd like to happen for us. Yeah. If not, YouTube is the ultimate creators marketplace. Right. We will find our niche no matter what. I think that we are creating high quality stories. People will come and find those stories. And if season 10 is rubbish, which it could be, then we'll have even more people coming to us.
Indeed.
But effectively what we're trying to create, one way of looking at it, I guess, is we're trying to create almost like a HBO alternative to Doctor Who in a sense, in that without it's darker, it's more adult, but not for sex and violence reasons. Yeah. For we're dealing with some deep themes reasons. Yeah. Sure. Like there's a story where we deal with the morality of collateral damage in war, for example, and there's another story where we take the idea of like guerrilla warfare and resist and like becoming the resistance against some empire. We're taking that story and we're trying to look at what are the realistic ramifications of that. Like what happens once you topple the empire? What are there going to be violins? Who's going to make the violins?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It turns out no one.
Good shout. Is there room for Big Finish and yourselves?
Yeah. Definitely. Essentially, we're both storytellers, aren't we? And what's happened here is two storytellers have come together and written a story, and we're working on a story. And I think that's when you talk about what's our ultimate goal. We're both at the very root core of it. We just want to tell stories.
I would expand that personally, and I would add that Big Finish are all about taking the classic era and revitalising it. We are trying, like they are about looking backwards. We're about looking forwards. Okay. We're about trying to do something totally different and new that you wouldn't be able to do on TV, and Big Finish would not be able to do due to licensing restrictions. Sure. Effectively. So what we're trying to do in terms of is there room for us in Big Finish? Not only is there room for us in Big Finish, but coexist. I mean, I love Big Finish with a deep passion. I love Big Finish. And I'd never want to step on their toes, but we're creating an alternative product. Yeah. That's how I look at it. Like, there's room for Coke and Pepsi. Yeah, sure. And the other thing is as well, this is a little bit political in terms of internal politics and stuff, but BBC-wise, one of the things about Big Finish, and it's because they're a small company, they're creating bespoke content, but as a result of that, they are forced to create products at a really high price. That means most Doctor Who fans are going to be priced out. Of buying Big Finish and getting into Big Finish, which I think is tragic because there's so many great stories that they're missing out on. Absolutely. Our content is free. You can listen to it no matter who you are, and even though it's the same medium as Big Finish. I like to think that our feel is very different.
Sure. Yeah.
And I just think that it's like Nicholas Briggs said in the Doctor Who The Fan Show Audio Adventure Special. The wonderful thing about audio is you can create a blockbuster movie with no budget.
Yeah.
And I know that Big Finish actively encourages people to make their own audio dramas. We're just way more ambitious about it than most people doing it.
Yeah.
Sure. That's how I see it. Most people just go, oh, I'd like to do a second Doctor story, whereas we have, what is it, 3-season arc planned, something like that.
Okay.
So that's the big difference, I'd say.
Sure.
But
fantastic.
Nothing but love for Big Finish, though.
Yep.
From our
great organisation.
Oh, yeah.
Great organisation, great audios. But as we draw to a close, tell us, where can the listeners find your content?
Okay, so we are all over the shop, aren't we? We got the TARDIS hooked up to Facebook and Twitter. That was the first step. So all the stuff we talk about is retweeted and re-fummered. You can follow us on Facebook if you look for Tales of a Timelord, / Tales of a Timelord. Same for Twitter. And then all our content is on SoundCloud, YouTube, Bandcamp and iTunes. So if you're an iTunes type of person, if you're an Apple guy or girl, then go to iTunes and you'll get all our content there.
Because we appreciate that different people have different preferences for how they consume media. And a lot of people that, you talk to them and they'll be like, oh, it's on YouTube, oh, it's not very legitimate then.
Right.
Whereas, we can, or they'll say, for example, oh, I don't want to listen to that on iTunes, that's so much effort.
Yeah.
And so we've given them the option of everything. Do what you want. We don't mind how you listen to it, as long as you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then we've got Bandcamp is where if you want to download your version of the show, you can own it there. As we've said, it's all free content. And we often give freebies away with downloads there, little images and things like that.
Yep.
And then we have a website which has got loads of different content on, which is talesofaTimelord.wordpress.com.
Brilliant. John, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure chatting, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do it again sometime further down the line.
Definitely. Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much. Cheers.